Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. Massive thanks to the CS Girlies for having me. Today, I'm going to talk about my projects and finding creative inspiration, and also a bit about my own design philosophy. But first off, what is my deal? So, for those of you who might in London, and my entire life I just wanted to do something creative. Although I did succeed academically, like school-wise, I never really resonated with that kind of lifestyle. So I decided that for university I was going to study music business, and then I hashtag gamer girl. And post graduation, I kind of felt like that wasn't for me either. And I worked in cafes and modeling while I had to think about what I wanted to do. But I was getting really impatient because this was my, what, like sixth job. I'd done retail, admin, waitressing, receptionist work, and now two barista roles. And I hated most of them. And I'm the kind of person, I don't know if you guys can relate, I'm the kind of person who latches onto a new hobby almost every month. And my choice for January 2026 was tech. So I built my first gaming PC and my first cyberdeck. So let's talk about kind of everything that I have done January up until now. The Mermaid Cyberdeck, you guys know her, and I hope you love her. But I came across cyberdecks on Pinterest and YouTube. And when I first found them, they were kind of strictly like cyberpunk military style. And of course, it was male dominated. I was inspired to attempt my own, kind of using the very bare minimum needed for a mini computer, but I wanted to attempt it in my own style. So this is why I've written here I initially didn't have an aesthetic, because the aesthetic was me, I guess. Like I didn't even think about labeling it mermaid core or like the mermaid cyberdeck, you know. People labeled it for me when I blew up on TikTok. With the swell of new followers, I knew I had to keep people engaged because basically, law drop. At the time, I was working in a cafe, but it closed down. So I was out of a. So I was like, okay, this TikTok thing, this really has to work for me. So I fully embraced the mermaid label that people had set for me. I was like, okay, I'm going to fully embrace this. Let's dive deep. And then this until this month. So this was purely an aesthetic upgrade. You can see I've added some cool things around the frame of the screen. I've added some rattan here. There is a hole here because there's a cute little compass. It like peers into this compass on the bottom. And then this is a window that you can flip open and see the Raspberry Pi. And so I was inspired kind of just by people commenting about it being kind of mermaid like, and I loved that. And I was very aware that I had amassed an audience, but not just because of the cyberdeck, but because it was a new aesthetic approach to cyberdecks, I guess. And I mean, you guys know cyberdecks aren't new, they have just been a niche for ages, but people hadn't yet seen a more feminine take. Um, Now, I say feminine, but I do want to use that term very loosely because obviously our ideas of what a feminine object is, that is socialized. So there is nothing inherently womanly about this. We just merely perceive it to be so because we perceive certain objects and aesthetics to be gendered. It's sort of like the way that we see pink as inherently feminine, but you know, at the end of the day, it is a color and we are socialized to have that perception of it. Anyway, yeah, like slight feminist rant, that is a topic for another time. But moving on, so this is what it looks like today. Now, like, why the hell did I upgrade it? Why did I change it? I thought I would get bad reception for this because I know people might have been attached to what it looked like before. But I knew I liked the mermaid aesthetic, but I wanted a less traditional kind of Western idea of what mermaid was. So I looked at my own culture. I'm from the Philippines. And I was like, okay, what would it look like if it was from a Southeast Asian mermaid? So I sort of analyzed the temples from the Southeast Asian area, the way that is sort of what the water looks like and the colors of damp mossy stone. As you can see, I've put roots that kind of grow alongside the frame of the screen. And yeah, so the had to redo my whole cyberdeck journey from January, I would definitely try to make it completely out of scrap technology, because that is one important thing about cyberdecks. Like, the philosophy of cyberdecks is taking scrap technology and things that you already have, things lying around, and repurposing them. I didn't do that because as a beginner, I didn't know that that was a massive part of cyberdeck culture. Now that I know that, looking back, I would have preferred to do it that way, but like, we're here now and I bought this stuff, so I may as well use it rather than keep making things new. So, moving on. This is not in chronological order, by the way, because this one was the second cyberdeck that I had made post my mermaid one. So I did this as a series on TikTok for educational purposes, even though like I still had no idea what I was doing myself. I kind of just wanted to, because I had a lot of questions, that person who makes that knowledge accessible for everyone. So yeah, I did this as a TikTok series. This was back in April, and I believe I wanted to improve upon my really basic knowledge and pick up a soldering iron and also learn how to 3D print. So the solar panel was kind of haphazardly soldered on. It was soldered on pretty bad. I'm looking to upgrade this at some point. But this taught me more about more like practical like soldering and 3D, me to the solar punk philosophy, which is very much about sort of sustainability. And I kind of like that aspect of it being able to be off grid because it can be solar charged. So that was sort of my introduction into this whole solar punk ideology. Now, this is my pride and joy. This is my baby. This is my favorite aesthetic. This is my. And okay, at this point, in my kind of like TikTok social media career, I didn't want to back myself into a cyberdeck corner because I knew there was so many other ways that I could express creativity. And I knew that there was a bit of a small risk that the more that I grow online, the more people were just there for the cyberdeck. So I needed something that challenged me, my creativity and my knowledge, but also something relevant enough for me to use daily. And if you remember me saying I'm like a music freak, I studied it in university. So that's a massive thing for me. And I really wanted to make this MP3 player in a sort of desert sci-fi aesthetic. Cyberdecks, because I didn't just want to be a cyberdeck creator. And this was most challenging hardware wise. I was losing my mind. This my cybertex, I would say, and it is my favorite project to date. And also, it got me my first sponsorship. So this was incredibly rewarding because so far on my social media career, I hadn't really felt maybe the effects of success yet. And now I was like, oh yeah, like PCBWay reached out and they said, okay, like we'll fund your project, which was awesome. I couldn't have done it without them. And moving on, this is my plant microbial fuel cell. So, as I said before, solar punk was a topic of interest to me, and it was slowly kind of creeping its way into my For You page. The sustainability of it, and I like the anti megacorp lifestyle and anti capitalism. It was just really attractive to me. So, this is an ongoing project because it makes its own electricity from the. I mean, I could get into the science of it, but actually, I don't fully know myself. I just know that it works. But I'm finding it quite difficult to find a use case for this electricity because it is literally milliamps. Like, this takes a long, long time to fully establish the microbiome. But my idea for it was to have this plant power its own smart LCD screen of some sort that would display the moisture in the soil, the temperature, if you need to water it. That was kind of the idea behind it. But because it's just taking so long, I am like, this is like the most mentally challenging project. Also, I was inspired by bio brutalism or eco brutalism. And it's not my favorite aesthetic, but I thought it's important for me to branch out and challenge my tastes and try to experiment. So yeah, it doesn't look the way that I would make a like my own typical project, but I kind of like that I get to dip my feet into lots of different aesthetics. So yeah, ongoing. I'll finish this at some point. But my next project for me next month is an outer space bass guitar because fun fact, I used to play bass and I'm self-taught and I also wanted to go to a luthier university, which is like a university you learn how to make instruments in. And you've probably already come to the conclusion I am a massive sci-fi fan. So I wanted to make my own project, but from another world, but a world sort of my own creation. So I'm really excited to try this. PCBWay reached out again, so I'm going to try and get funding for that. But let's move on to my actual philosophy. Like, why do I think the way that I do, and what's up with me? So I'm a big believer in tech feeling natural. We are so disconnected from nature and everything we own from factories. It always feels so refined and manicured, which, yeah, like this is a great technological advancement, but also I believe that humans should be interacting with nature on a daily basis. So, me making organic looking technology is a small win for me in that regard, just because, like, you can probably tell most of my projects grab some sort of inspiration from nature. And I really love the tension of having such sleek and modern man made tech look ancient and timeless by sort of integrating those natural influences into each of my projects. So, yeah, I love nature. Make things from a genuine place. I have said before, I didn't have an aesthetic for my first version of the Mermaid cyberdeck. And that's just because I was like smashing together pieces that I already owned in ways that I felt looked good. You know, I didn't have a mood board and I didn't even bother labeling it. That was done for me by my audience. They said, you know, this looks like mermaid core. So every project that I make, even if the aesthetic isn't necessarily my favorite or planned out, you know, I just pour my own tastes into. People say, okay, so form follows function. I said, who cares? Because people say that with technology or anything that is supposed to be usable or functional, make it work first and then fit the enclosure around it. Now, I'm not one for methods. I just like having everything kind of scattered out on my desk and then going back and forth between working on making the moss look a certain way or then doing the software and then going back to like yarsifying the keyboard. So also, like, if it doesn't work functionally and you want something to just look pretty, then that is absolutely your right as a creator. People hated on me because my cyberdeck looked pretty, but the software was minimal. Like, it did work, but that, you know, that's never enough for some people. So I say, you know, screw them. If you enjoy what you're making from an artistic lens and you think about the functionality after that, then that's fine because at the end of the day, we are all learning. So many parts of it will look poopy straight up, everything I make, I don't know if you think it looks cool, but I mean, I hope it does, but you can definitely tell a human made it. As in, like, not everything fits to the perfect millimeter. There's parts that I've left glue on or paint streaks. And I think that's kind of part of the charm. You know, I'm not going for perfection. I just want to let my inner world out, I suppose. So, uh, I'm not going to elaborate on this much because this is like a big topic, but if you want to use AI, that's cool, but like I don't think it has any place in the creative industries, and I can talk about that further in a in a different time. Feed your mind. Yeah, this is so important. So, while a lot of my aesthetic ideologies come from my lived experiences, so for example, my culture, my sense of fashion, the people I meet, and the places that I travel to, I get so much inspiration from media that I consume and the emotions that it invokes in me. You know, I didn't pop out of the womb loving the desert. That was an aesthetic that I learned to love because I saw it in Star Wars, in Tatooine, if you know what that is. And I thought, wow, that makes me feel like I'm isolated in a barren wasteland, but it's so ancient and hostile. And I kind of just love that feeling that it evoked in me. And then I saw it in Dune and it kind of reaffirmed that to me. And then I played Minecraft and I felt the same way when I saw the desert. So it kind of every single time I saw a piece of media that represented the desert, I reaffirmed in my mind why I liked it. So media evokes emotions in you that you didn't even know you had about certain things. And this goes for any media, including music. I didn't know that piano could make me feel so nostalgic and lonely until I heard it in Minecraft. So inspiration will strike you when you broaden your horizons and when you seek it out in places you underestimate. Because I'm going to admit, okay, I hated Star Wars before seeing it, and now it inspires me all the time. So I think it's so important to Look for media in a genre that is outside of your typical kind of genre. Finally, have the audacity. I mean, this is so important. You might have all the best ideas, you might have the vision that no one else can see, but if you don't have the audacity and the courage to pull through with it, because like you're thinking, what will people think? Is this good enough? How do I even get there? Someone who might be less talented, have no morals, or have no creativity will have that audacity, and they will overtake you and they will do it for you, and you will be stuck thinking, I have all this creativity and nowhere to put it, and meanwhile they are out there succeeding, and that is simply because they had the guts. Anyway, motivational yap sesh over. Let's talk about philosophy, my philosophy, and why I think the way that I do about creative technology. Minimalism. So, if this is your style and aesthetic preference, I do not mean to be a hater, but my experience is that in the past decade, there has been hyper focus on consumption. And with billions of people consuming across the globe, companies have to streamline that process to sell as many units as quick as possible. So, as a result, minimalism is on the rise in our fashion, in our buildings, in our tech. I mean, look at the pictures that I've put up here. Again, if this is your style, like, no hate. But because these companies design it for everyone, it is designed for no one in particular, which means we then go out to consume phone cases and key rings to make it feel like us. I have no qualms with that because I love a good cute keyring for my bag. But why do we need these things now? Yes, I could go out and make get a cute MP3 from Apple and put stickers on it to personalize it. Or I could spend 50 hours making one in my own aesthetic, and it teaches me how to code and it teaches me about hardware engineering. Now, why doesn't everyone do that? Because that's so long and no one wants to do that. I mean, capitalism has made everyone complacent to convenience. But now that means we live in a time where we use technology on a daily basis. We rely on it, but the majority of people don't know how it works. Why is that even an issue? Why does UbeBoobey care? Am I just a diva with a flair for the dramatic? Am I just ranting about nothing? No. This all matters to me because I want to give power back to the consumer. I want people to know how their tech works so we can be better equipped to deal with surveillance tech and to stop being so reliant on these mega corporations that don't really have our best interests at heart. I want people to get to know themselves, and I want you guys to think critically as to why you like the things that you do. And I want to spark curiosity in people who only consume media from a specific genre. Once you start branching out, your worldview will broaden. And I care because I want community, and I truly believe women could be at the forefront of that. So let's do a little thought experiment. I've just put up 3 questions. Think of any piece of fantasy media, your favorite one. What would or does technology look like in that universe? If you had to make something from that universe, what would it look like? What would its functionality be? Think of any aspect of your own culture. How could you represent that visually? I know I put rattan in a lot of my things because rattan is a Filipino thing, and I just love involving my culture in everything that I do. Do you guys have any favorite materials, and what do you like about them visually? What do you think they convey emotionally? And I just did some like little drafts so that you guys can see. This is what I think I would look like as an MP3 player. I mean, I already made an MP3 player, but as I've said before, I don't like boxing myself into kind of one label. I like branching out. So if I were to make another MP3 player, I think it would be like a techno zen kind of Frutiger Arrow vibe. I just love pink. I love the whole like natural vibe. It looks very nostalgic. This is inspired by kind of Dune. Like if I was to make something from the Dune universe, it would be like a little pebble step counter. I love how cute it would be and the kind of grungy hostility of it. An e-picture frame. I thought like, yes, this is very minimal, but I like that it kind of reminds me of Coruscant from Star Wars. It's quite artistic. I like that you can see all the messy exposed wires. These are just like some fun kind of mood boards. I do them sometimes when I'm bored, but I don't really do them much for projects. But thank you so much for having me. If anyone has any questions, please write them in the chat and I will answer them to the best of my abilities. I hope you enjoyed that. So yeah, thank you so much.
Based on the chat, It seems like people have really been enjoying this. Oh my gosh. It seems like so many
Really?
people are getting inspired by
Thank
all of the
you.
things that you said. Okay. So to give people time to type their questions in the chat, my first question to you would be, are there any other creative technology, social media influencers, or just people that make media that inspire you?
Um, when I first started getting into technology, I was watching a lot of this guy on YouTube called Marcin Plaza. He kind of takes apart things and puts them back together, but in really interesting ways, and he talks you through his whole process. It's not very beginner friendly because half the time I had no idea what he was talking about, but honestly, I thought he made tech look fun and he made tech look enjoyable and like a hobby that I could really see myself getting into.
How do you spell that so I can put it in the chat in case anyone's interested?
Oh yeah, let me type
Are
that
you?
in. How many upcoming exciting projects do you currently have? I try to do one at a time because if I have multiple, I lose my head and I get so wrapped up in all of the different ones. So when I multitask, I just lose it. Like I can't. So I just have one and it is a outer space bass guitar. How do you start building your first creative tech? Um, I would say kind of think about kind of what do you like out of something? What inspires you? What pieces of media do you like? What materials do you know that you like? And then how does that translate into something that could be functional? You can even start very small, you know. For me, cyberdecks were just my first entry point because I thought that they were the most, you know, beginner friendly. You know, it's very much plugging things into each other. So I thought that that was the best route for me. But you can start wherever you want. Think about what you actually want. I know I started cyberdecks because I I have like an apocalypse thing where I want to be off grid or something. So that's kind of why I started doing that. So yeah, look at what you like and what you would want. Aside from mermaids, do you have any other concepts of Filipino culture you want to take inspo from? Yeah, I was really into the jungle when I was making my third revision of my mermaid cyber deck. So it's jungle mermaid themed, and I was looking at a tree, a specific tree from Siquijor Island in the Philippines, and the way that the roots were all tangled together. I really wanted to kind of exaggerate that. It didn't end up having that many roots, but that was because they were getting in the way of absolutely everything. But aside from that, I actually my favorite thing about Filipino culture is the food. I don't know how that would translate into technology, but I would love to give that a try. Yeah. As a software expert, can the hardware switch for me be hard? Like suddenly creating something hardware, cyberdeck, or anything in hardware? Honestly, I'm not a software person, so I instantly took to hardware. I found it pretty self-explanatory. I don't know what it was, but there's something about coding that is just so inaccessible to me. I really can't get my head around it. I would say if you like kind of doing things with your hands and if you're excited to kind of have something tangible, I think yeah, go for it. I think there's so many resources out there. I mean, I learned literally everything I know off of YouTube, Reddit, and GitHub. So there's always, if you have a question, there is always an answer out there. Um, let's see. A double themed cyber deck, bro. I would love that. Yeah, YouTube is the best resource. I do love YouTube. That is where I learned my first cyberdeck stuff out of. But yeah, does anyone else have any other questions?
Okay, looks like there's a few more people typing. But yeah,
Mm.
also TikTok lately has been coming more and more informational, I think, with like the
Yeah,
longer form videos being allowed to get posted. Like some people will do full
definitely.
on tutorials there now too.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to lean a bit more into. Um, where can I find scrap electronics? So what I saw, so I went to a few, what do you call them? Like garage sales or car boot sales, that's what they're called. I picked up some solar panels and some cables, and that's kind of where I got those from. Charity shops are supposed to have them, but when I was making my cyberdecks and I was looking for scrap technology, none of my charity shops had any, but yours might. A lot of people have just I don't know how they have this, but they just have lots of old technology. Like they never threw it away. I know my dad, he hates clutter, so he throws all of our scrap tech away. I wish we kept them, but it happens. There are books that you would recommend. I can't lie, guys. I don't read books, and I'm really sorry about that. I probably should. I would love to be a reader, but I don't know if I have, quite the the brain for that. Did you anticipate that showcasing your mermaid cyberdeck would inspire a whole movement into tech, especially since it is normally a male-dominated space? No, I literally that was a whim. I had TikTok so that I could have it kind of almost as a creative diary to be like, oh, I posted this and then that was in January and that was fun and I could look back at it. I didn't expect anyone to see it and anyone to be really inspired by it. So that was a shock and a half. That was so that was so shocking and now it has really snowballed into something that I can see myself doing long term and I'm so happy that it happened. But yeah, so it's amazing that now there is a movement and it is so I feel so proud. I mean, I'm not going to take credit for cyberdecks because they have been a thing for ages, but I'm just really glad that people saw the value in what I was doing. If you could make your own totally spice compact, what aesthetic would you go for? Oh, I think I would go all the way for a kind of I would want it to be purple. I really like purple. Like Karomi? I don't know. I feel like a Karomi Totally Spice compact would be so cute. But like a very cutesy one. What YouTube channels, subreddits did you learn coding and hardware from? Oh my gosh. I have resources linked in my YouTube videos for each one, but there's this person and they did a Squareline Studios tutorial. I use Squareline Studios for doing UI and then Arduino IDE. There were lots of tutorials on there. As for subreddits, I am usually on the cyberdeck subreddit. Um, and hardware, that was purely YouTube. I learned the most things from yeah, like from YouTube. And then for coding as well, I'm not gonna lie, I get a lot of the stuff from GitHub because people have pre-written code there for beginners like me. So I would take that code and then perhaps like if I needed to tweak something, I could kind of go through it and experiment. It takes so much time though, it's such a process. And if I had to rewrite any of the code that I did for my cyberdecks or my MP3, I would cry. Like it's not easy for me still. It's so difficult. Um,
I think there might have been a question that we missed in the chat
oh
from
no,
earlier.
sorry.
It's okay, I found it.
Oh,
So
okay.
there was one girl who said, I find it hard to find the balance between describing my identity yet not putting it in a box. I'm curious how long ago you started with tech, how long the journey took you, and what difficulties you encountered on the way.
Oh, okay. So I started in tech in January of this year, so it's really only been half a year. And I'm the kind of person as well who doesn't like to, box myself in, which is why I experiment project to project with different aesthetics that I know that I really enjoy. And these aesthetics, they're not picked randomly. There's parts of it that resonate with me for some reason. I think you are your best company. I really like going into my head and thinking about why do I like the things that I like? And, critically really having conversations with myself, I guess, about why do I prefer silver for this project rather than gold? And then what does gold convey? And what does it remind me of? What will it remind other people of? I think if I cared too much about how other people were going to perceive my own projects, then I would it wouldn't be helpful. I think what's best is you know what you like, and people, they're gonna project things onto your project, but that's just how art is. You're gonna make a piece of art, people will interpret it differently, but that is the point. It's your relationship with your own art that matters as much as the way that people perceive it. But the way that you make it genuine to you and just try your best to diversify because the more that you expand your horizons, the more you will begin to understand yourself. I mean, artists will say that the way that they do their art also impacts the way that they view the world, and the way that you view the world impacts your art. It is a cycle, and it's so interesting. It's a never-ending thought experiment, and you are always learning more about yourself with every project. So yeah, it's so much. Sorry, I low-key forgot the original question and I just went on a yap. I'm so sorry. Do you never get stuck overthinking things or being stuck in your own head? Um, yeah, so I I'm very familiar with kind of being an overthinker. I would say that I am very guilty of overthinking myself sometimes into oblivion, and I have made it a point to, always journal and blah blah blah. But it is very possible to overthink and self-improve to the point where you are stagnating your own self-improvement. I constantly looked to get new hobbies so that I could rediscover myself or find something that was really my niche. But at some point, when tech stuck, I kind of just accepted, like this might not be my niche forever, but that is okay because I'm enjoying what I do. Really, just hashtag YOLO, live for the moment. I think when I overthink things, I try to limit myself on kind of thinking myself in circles. I think it is hard to learn though. I think I'm still learning it. And I think I try to justify everything I do. Why do I do everything I do? But like, I don't know if being that aware is helpful or productive. So at some point, I just go, girl, shut up and do it. So, yeah, there needs to be a balance. It's hard to explain where to find that balance because I myself don't really know where it is. But yeah, I mean, everyone's on their own journey and at their own pace, so it's really interesting. Please can you guys organize tutorial for us on AI? Oh, that would be interesting. I don't know anything about AI. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you guys liked the workshop. Oh, there are any channels that any of you would recommend me for computer architecture? Oh, I can't lie, I don't know much about computer architecture. When I was first learning to build my own PC though, I watched so many videos. I just remember Linus Tech Tips for some reason. But yeah, that was most of it.
Okay, just to make sure we have your permission to post the slides once the workshop is done,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. And yeah, so we're recording. We'll have the slides for you guys after. Just one last check to make sure there's no more questions. I just put some YouTubers in the chat that might inspire you guys as well. They do some more DIY devices and things like that. Um, but yeah, I hope you guys were super inspired. I know I was. I know everyone who was active in the chat was.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see so much more from you. You've been one of my favorite YouTubers this year.
Oh, really? Thank you so much. Thank you for having me as well, and thank you everyone for taking the time. For the degree question, no, I didn't. I wish I did actually, but this is a hobby for me. Yeah. But thank you everyone so much. Thank you for your time and thank you for all of the support. I really do appreciate it, and I want you guys to have a great weekend. And I hope this was helpful in some way.
Yeah, everyone in the chat, say thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yay. Yeah, this is so much fun. Very
All right.
motivating.
I'm glad that it
Okay.
helped you too. That's awesome. Okay. All
All
right.
right. Well, see ya.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I will end the stage.
Awesome. Thank you.